some interesting parallels still between those two moves, but right now, I think that trade with the Dodgers looks better for the Tigers than it did even at the time.
If you watched the start of the season for the Tigers and you thought September 16th, there's no chance that they're going to bring on Cody Stavenhagen from The Athletic to talk about this ball club, you are wrong. The Tigers still do have a very small chance of cracking the postseason. You can also hear Cody on his Turn the Corner pod. Cody, great to have you on. Can you explain the pathway to the playoffs for the Detroit Tigers, and if the city and the players and the whole deal, if everyone's buying it?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys. It's kind of difficult to explain how they got here. It doesn't make a lot of sense. They were 9 games under 500 on July 4th. They sold at the trade deadline. It was unclear who was going to pitch for this team. They were basically using a 2-man rotation with modified bullpen games and openers and bulk relievers. And since August 1st, they have the best ERA in baseball. They're 2.5 games behind the Twins. They don't have the tiebreaker against the Twins, so it's really kind of more like a 3.5 game deficit. But with the way they've been playing, best team in the AL since that date on July 4th, this is starting to go from a pipe dream to a real possibility. A lot of this, it would help if Minnesota could implode, but the Tigers are suddenly legitimately in this race.
So would you agree with the statement that they got younger and they got better?
I mean, yeah, that's just factual, and I don't think many people would have seen that coming. I didn't necessarily see that coming, but they traded Mark Canha, Andrew Chafin, Carson Kelly, Jack Flaherty, Gio Urshela was DFA'd, brought up a bunch of guys from the minors. Some of these position players, Trey Sweeney, Jace Young, Dylan Dingler, haven't really totally found their footing. And it's been pitchers who had 5 and 6 ERAs in AAA who have come up here and just shoved. It's kind of been remarkable to watch every night. It's like, wait, how is this happening? But guys keep throwing strikes. Guys keep getting results.
Is this an AJ Hinch thing? Because you look back at what AJ Hinch did with a young team, maybe a little over 8 years ago, and that's when he had success. No, 9 years ago in 2015, and took a team to a wild card victory in Yankee Stadium. Is this an AJ Hinch thing, or is this a player development thing that has pushed these guys, not pushed them, but made them ready to be successful in the big leagues?
Yeah, I think a lot of credit definitely has to go to AJ and his coaching staff as well, particularly the pitching coaches, Chris Fetter, Robin Lund, Juan Nieves. In 3 of Hinch's 4 years as Tigers manager, this team has played significantly better in the second half than it did the first half. I'm not sure that's coincidence. They've all been young teams that developed in the big leagues and got better as the year went on. Hinch hasn't really had like a stacked roster by any means to work with in Detroit, but there's been tangible signs of improvement, even just how creatively Hinch has used this pitching staff, using openers, bringing in bulk relievers, really playing the matchups night in and night out. And lately he's kind of been managing a little bit more like these are our postseason games. Kiter Montero threw 5 scoreless, had thrown only 63 pitches yesterday. Hinch brought in Tyler Holton to face the Orioles a third time through. We all know that it's tough to quantify these days the impact of a manager or the coaching staff. But if there's ever a situation where those guys deserve some credit, I think it's one like this.
Okay, I have to ask this question. Do you know the significance of April 13th for this team?
April 13th. I don't. You got me stumped there.
Okay. They lost 2 games to the Twins that day. One they lost 4-1. The other one they lost 11-5 in 12 innings. They gave up a 7 spot in the 12th inning and lost. If they win one of those games, they win the season series against the Twins, and they change the game. And they're only like 1 game out. If they just win one of those 2 games. Now, both these games are in Detroit. So they always say you can't win a pennant in April, but you can lose it. So looking back, it's going to – listen, the Twins are doing everything they can to let the Tigers try to win this third wild card, because the Twins didn't try at the trade deadline, didn't try really in the offseason. They're falling apart, injuries, whatever you want to call it. But if Tigers miss by a game or 2, they can look back on April 13th and say, we gave up a 7 spot in the 12th inning to a team that was really struggling. Now we missed because of those 2 games. I mean, it's tough. It sucks, but that's the significance.
Yeah, that's huge. If I recall, there was some really bad defense maybe in those games. And then I think the low point of their season was in Minnesota in July. Just played a really poor series. Kenta Maeda got absolutely rocked. That was his final start before going to the bullpen. You don't maybe look back on that series as a missed opportunity because the Tigers were really kind of limping into that series. But it is, yeah, to your point, funny to look back on kind of little moments throughout the year that now can make such a huge difference.
Well, I'll point this out. Javi Baez goes down a few weeks ago and the team takes off. Obviously, Tigers fans are very angry about his performance so far during the contract. So how much do you see that pop up on your social media feed right now? And in all seriousness, I mean, he was one of the worst hitters in baseball this season, and I think last year too, right? So you are replacing a negative player. How much does that factor in?
Yeah, I think there's probably something to that, maybe even just culturally, kind of this big contract veteran guy who's underproducing just isn't around, isn't in the dugout anymore. Does that make a difference when a young guy like Trey Sweeney gets called up? I mean, maybe so. Baez was, believe it or not, starting to play a little bit better before he goes in the IL and eventually has hip surgery. It's not like the Tigers have gotten game-breaking production at shortstop since he's been gone. But Trey Sweeney, a guy who they acquired at the trade deadline in the Jack Flaherty trade that not everyone loved, ended up coming almost right to the big leagues. And, he's shown some positive flashes. He's played good defense. I think he's got 4 homers. It's not like it's totally made the shortstop position a plus for the Tigers. But, yeah, you could certainly point to that as one element that's interesting. And I think the acquisition of Trey Sweeney has probably not gotten enough credit. He was kind of viewed as like the second piece in that deal with the Dodgers behind Tyron Lorenzo, a catching prospect. Sweeney's now playing shortstop pretty much day in and day out rather than Javi Baez.
What did you think of that trade back then? And some to do with the return, but also I'd like to get your thoughts on what in my mind seemed like a lack of really strong interest. He looked like the clear-cut starting pitching prize. We know how much that can mean in a playoff race. We saw that last year. I bring this up all the time because I love the transparency from Mike Hazen, who runs the Diamondbacks front office. He was like, we could have gotten Jordan Montgomery. We didn't offer enough. We were a starter short of the World Series, and that very starter burned us in the World Series, or we could be champs right now. So then we fast forward a year, and a club like the Yankees says, nah, medicals aren't good enough. And meanwhile, if the Dodgers don't have Jack Flaherty right now, where the heck are they?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a consequential move. The Orioles were just in Detroit. I'm watching them like, okay, I mean, Eflin's really good. I don't know if they could have got Eflin and another starter. Corbin Burns is really good. Imagine if they had a guy like Jack Flaherty. I don't know exactly what was in the medicals that scared off the Yankees, but Flaherty's been healthy and he's looked pretty dang good for the Dodgers. I didn't hate the return as much as a lot of people. I always thought if the Tigers could get a back end top 100 prospect for a rental and Flaherty, that would be pretty fair. That's exactly what they got in Lorenzo, even though he's a catcher who may eventually have to move to first. And then Sweeney was viewed a little more as a throw-in, like utility infielder. Maybe he can hit, maybe he can't. We'll see if there's anything there. He's obviously, like I said, playing an outsized role right now. Scott Harris took some heat for that trade. It was compared a lot to the Kikuchi trade between the Blue Jays and Astros. I don't know. I think that trade was probably a little overrated at the time. Now, Will Wagner's done pretty well, but go look at Joey Loperfido's numbers. I think he's not a perfect player. And look at what Kikuchi has done in Houston. Yeah, there's some interesting parallels still between those two moves. But right now, I think that trade with the Dodgers looks better for the Tigers than it did even at the time.
Congestion from sinuses, allergies, or a cold can be all-consuming.
That includes snoring for me. But Scotty, I found some relief from Navage Nasal Care. You've got to try this. Navage makes breathing easier. My Navage unit is a game changer for clearing my congestion fast.
Yeah, Kratz, Navage uses that smooth saline flow and nasal suction to clear those nasal passages.
It works for me, Scotty. I've noticed a huge difference since I started using Navage. I'm breathing better and the whole family is pumped that I've got the snoring under control.
We want to help you get relief from your congestion too. Our listeners can order a convenient Navage starter pack including a nose cleaner with batteries included and 30 original salt pods. Everything you need to get started. Plus, get a cleaning kit as a free gift with your order, but only going to our exclusive URL, navage.com/foul, and using our promo code FOUL. Again, to order your Navage free cleaning kit and for full product details, go to navage.com/foul. That's promo code FOUL at navage.com/foul.
I'm not saying this has to be an either or, but which is more likely? One of these young players who have emerged and has started to play gets some type of like Colt Keith type of extension this offseason? Or because normally this was what we were supposed to talk about right now when we have you on in September is next season. A little of this playoff push stuff is exciting, but really, is there an offseason for this team? Is there a lane where they make a free agent acquisition? You know, maybe like a Alex Bregman and an extension for one of the young players? Or is it only going to be like, maybe we'll try to extend some young players in a couple one-year deals?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, a really important question for the future of this franchise. Good as this team has played since July, it does still feel like a little bit of an anomaly. Like, I'm not sold that they have, with this current lineup, to run it back and win 90 games or win the division next year. You know, Bregman, third base, it's a really interesting conversation, but when I'm looking for the quickest way to improve this lineup, I'm circling, I'm highlighting, I'm bolding first base. And there's some interesting players who are going to be out there. Christian Walker, if you're willing to pay a little bit. If you're not, maybe even like a Carlos Santana. But Spencer Torkelson remains a huge question mark. He was demoted. He's come back up. He's been so-so since he came back up. I think if you're looking to add instant offense, you can't just kind of continue this extended trial with Torkelson. I think signing a first baseman who can slug a little bit could be a great path forward for the Tigers. And then third base, yeah, that's definitely got to be in the mix too.
Well, at least they found Riley Green, and when Kerry Carpenter's healthy, they got at least a couple bats in there that they can count on pretty good if Torkelson hasn't worked out the way they thought, especially after last year. But I got to ask you, before we let you go, a couple of questions. You went to Oklahoma State, correct?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so then you covered Oklahoma, right? Correct?
Yep.
That had to hurt a little bit. And then finally, in your bio, it says Texas all day. So I'm confused. Are you an Oklahoma State fan? Are you a Texas fan? Or are you an Oklahoma fan? Which one are we going with today?
Yeah, I guess Oklahoma State's my alma mater, right? It didn't hurt them to cover OU as bad as you would think because, I don't know, it's Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Trae Young. It was some awesome teams to cover. And I went to OSU, wanted to be a sports writer, wanted to be a journalist. So I never fully, put that fan hat on in college. It's really not until you get a little further removed and then you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I did go there. I guess I can get some T-shirts. I watch all the games. So yeah, I got to stay a little bit loyal to the alma mater there. But I was born and raised in Texas, so that's still, a big part of my identity as well.
Satisfied?
I mean, kind of. I mean, he didn't really give us an answer there. He's kind of like, well, I still like all three. I mean, I don't know. Things are different in Oklahoma, I guess, in Texas.
Don't let him give you a hard time.
No.
He says he's from New York, but then he says he's from Florida. Then he loves Chicago. So he picks a trifecta just like you.
He identifies with multiple places. No. And don't ask him about his college football team right now. Don't ask him. Do not.
There are no Texas, right, Cody? Fuck them.
No folks.
Do you know who his team is, Cody?
I don't know. What are we working with?
You should ask him. You might as well.
We're not going to talk about Fight Club. Rule number 1: we don't talk about Fight Club.
Yeah, right. Exactly. AJ might be coaching the Florida Gators.
That's true.
Team soon.
That's not what you want.
Yeah, that's not what you want right now.
Well, it would be fun. I'll give you that.
It would be a very good time.
We would have
at this point, that's what the season's for. Just having fun.
We'd recruit our asses off. I know that.
I just want to have some fun. So anyway, Cody, thank you so much for the time. Everyone can follow Cody at Cody Stavenhagen, Stavenhagen, and of course, check out his articles in The Athletic and the Turn the Corner pod. Appreciate you, Cody. Enjoy the stretch run here. At least you got some action to cover, right?
Yeah, for the first time in a long time. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.